You can hear the glorious evening of power. But today, let's talk about the fact that Russia has suddenly started having problems from a direction they didn't expect. I mean Romania, the European Union. What happened is basically what was bound to happen. Because while hundreds of drones are flying toward Ukraine and back to Russia, naturally some of them could end up in other regions, and they did. We all remember the situation with Poland where Ukrainian drones flew in, which were first identified as Russian, then again as Ukrainian, but overall it was complicated. And in one of the Baltic states, a Ukrainian drone also flew in, actually several times, and this time the Ukrainian drones, well, the little drone got lucky. The thing is, nothing exploded, the aircraft just fell, and that was it. But here, a Russian drone fell on the roof of an apartment building in Romania. And now all the countries of the European Union are expressing deep concern about all this. Naturally, the Romanians are as concerned as possible, and they are already taking active measures there. Besides expressing concern and posting various emojis and statuses on Facebook in the official group, in short, something happened, everything went the wrong way, and some say it was the Ukrainians. And now let's take a look and analyze in detail what happened in Romania, the situation at the front, plus Ukraine's problems with the Hungarians. Trouble came there too from where they didn't expect it. They kept waiting for Orban to be removed, and in the end, well, he was removed. Magyar came, who continued Orban's policy, even accusing Orban of being a Ukrainian puppet. And in the end, it turned out everything was not as it seemed. So here's what they're saying. A Russian drone hit a residential building in Romania. The reaction of Bucharest, NATO, and the EU. Here's what they're telling us. On the night of May 29, a Russian drone hit a residential high-rise in a Romanian city. Galats or Galats? Someone, correct me, who lives in Romania? Where is the stress placed? The drone crashed into the building at the 10th floor level, after which a fire broke out. 2 people were injured and 70 people were evacuated from the building. The situation looks quite serious in the photos. In the photos, you can see that one of the apartments was completely burned out. The bomb squad confirmed all of the drone's explosives detonated, so there's no further threat. Honestly, this building can't take any more. Initially, the device was called unidentified, but then the Romanian Ministry of Defense conducted an investigation and found out that it was Russian. The thing is, at night, Russia attacked Ukraine's civilian infrastructure near the border with drones. As a result, one of them flew over and crashed here. Of course, there's also another possibility. For example, one of the sides could have obtained a Russian drone, which isn't that hard to do, and as a provocation dropped it on the roof. There's also that version, I'm mentioning it to show everything that's currently making the rounds in the media. Now, the official version. The Russian drone was supposed to fly to Ukraine, but it didn't make it. It flew to Romania instead, and that's where it crashed. It's also interesting here, why did it explode? Because usually those drones that lose connection with the mothership, so to speak, not the Berlin one, but their own station, I think they don't explode, but there are probably some theories. I'm not an expert here, just write in the comments what actually happens. In case a combat drone with a charge suddenly loses its radio signal or it's intercepted or something like that happens. So the Romanians didn't shoot it down, they sent up 2 fighter jets accompanied by a helicopter, but they didn't shoot it down. I read that only 4 minutes passed from the moment it crossed the border to the moment it crashed, and that needs to be coordinated with the leadership. Shots, interception, all that. Nothing worked out. As a result, the drone crashed. And this wasn't the only drone. Near the village of Besisht, locals found another drone with a wingspan of about 3 meters without explosives. Huge, looks like a reconnaissance drone or something similar. Well, naturally, Bucharest started calling on both NATO and itself, as well as all European leaders, to deal with these matters as a whole. That's right, and I'm saying this without any sarcasm, because if something like this happens in a country, in a state, then of course it needs to be dealt with. And as we know, a modern problem requires modern solutions. That's why Bucharest is now investigating all of this. I don't know how adequate or objective it is, but nevertheless they're trying to investigate, and they're doing it with fairly tough measures and statements to match. If you're tired of politics, I have another channel. I'll never get tired of repeating this, a science channel called Americans on the Moon. It's a wonderful channel. You can subscribe to it by hovering your mouse cursor over the bell, and you'll immediately get access to a bunch of materials. And about fighting ignorance, like with contactees. And who was building pyramids with the Anunnaki? And there are quite scientific digests, for example, about the problems of astronautics and about building a base on the moon by humans and much, much more. So subscribe. It's extremely interesting, especially since, again, I'll emphasize there's no politics there and there are interesting news, facts, articles, and my own thoughts on all of this. That's how it is. For example, after this drone crashed, Romania immediately closed the Russian Consulate General in Constanța, and in addition it expelled Consul General Andrei Cosilin, declaring him persona non grata, and it was none other than the President of Romania, Nicușor Dan, who made the announcement. The Romanians held a meeting of the Supreme National Defense Council. They convened it, they did. That is why they called the drone crash the most serious incident affecting the country's territory since the beginning of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. Accordingly, they promised to take proportionate measures, and the official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry did not leave it unanswered. Maria Zakharova, in this case, stated that retaliatory measures in response to the declaration of the Russian Consul General as persona non grata and the closure of the consulate will not be long in coming. As far as I remember, Romania is quite a friendly country towards Russia. I might be mistaken, but at least that's what I've read, seen, and heard from acquaintances. And then suddenly things got so heated. Of course, Romania is not the richest or most powerful country, but nevertheless, its opinion in the European Union about everything that's happening can be considered an important factor. Let's just say what will happen next is still unclear. But the fact that a new reason has appeared to escalate the war again, to impose new sanctions on Russia, and probably to give more money to Zelensky as the defender of all Europe from the occupiers. Well, in the end, it seems that's what will happen. Maybe not, but it seems to me that this smells like more money. Write in the comments what you think about this. Another problem for the Russian Federation, at least according to Ukrainian analysts. And interestingly, Russian analysts assess it in the opposite way. And in fact, this has been happening since the very beginning of the war, if not earlier. So they say that the Russian army has begun to retreat on two key fronts. An expert spoke about the changes at the front. Honestly, you're not much of an expert, more like a barber for all the barbershop guys. You're always walking around with that serious, complicated look on your face. It feels like he didn't finish his dumplings at the nearest restaurant called Kip. But anyway, let's read what he thinks about this. So he says that the Russian Federation has problems not only with advancing, but also with holding certain positions. By the way, his position is the head of the Council of Reservists of the Ukrainian Ground Forces. What does that mean? I have no idea. He writes, you what? In the Zaporizhzhia and Dnipropetrovsk regions, they are already advancing or retreating or advancing, And, according to him, Russia continues to threaten new massive strikes on Kyiv. And it's not just you saying this, Moshka. Well, for example, Shoigu, who for the second day in a row has been saying that we are preparing a retaliatory strike, and this retaliatory strike has already been publicized everywhere. And NATO has already expressed its deepest concern. They're so worried they can't even eat, and everyone else is extremely concerned too. In short, we have a world full of worried people and nations. Mochka says that even at the peak of the current massive strikes, Russia is basically operating at the peak of its potential. And for the Kremlin to stockpile new missiles, it needs time, resources, finances, and production capacity. They're running out of missiles again, with enough for about 2 weeks and no resupply. That's the situation. On one hand, I understand these barbershop guys. They just repeat whatever is put into their heads through these manuals or, let's say, memory pills. But sometimes it's extremely strange, especially when it comes to the supposed missile shortage. How many times have we heard? Probably dozens of times that one side is running out of missiles and then the other side too, but you guys still have a bunch of them. Both in Ukraine and in Russia, there are missiles that are sent to kill people. Unfortunately, it's unclear when this will end, but the situation is escalating again, even right now. For example, I literally just read recently that there was an air raid alert in Yamal. Ukrainian specialists, let's say, claimed responsibility for it, and this air raid alert was caused by missile attacks all the way in Yamal. Perhaps people say, and in particular participants in our chat, by the way, subscribe, just point your camera, phone or smartphone at this QR code and you'll get there whenever you need to. Or there's a direct link in the video description. Just click it and you'll get there too. They say it could be a drill, a detected drone, or even a ballistic missile. Everyone has their own opinion. Right now, it's all speculation. If you know for sure, write your opinion in the comments, or even better, share any accurate information you have. For the first time ever, a missile alert has been declared throughout the entire Ural Federal District. It is in effect in the Sverdlovsk, Chelyabinsk, Kurgan, and Tyumen regions, as well as in the Khanty-Mansi and Yamalo-Nenets autonomous districts. In addition, the airports in Yekaterinburg, Chelyabinsk, and Perm have suspended operations. And the message is as follows. Stay calm, be alert, take shelter in the nearest building, and remain in a safe place until the all-clear signal is given. There is a missile threat, so what we're seeing here is most likely not about drones, but missile attacks. It could be pink flamingos, it could be something else, but all of this is quite complicated and truly dangerous. At the same time, missile danger was also declared in Tatarstan, Perm Krai, Samara region, and generally in many other regions and districts. So, well, it's unknown what's happening there right now. It's possible that new bombings will happen again, and by the way, I recently read some news that, yes, that's the case, there's a lot of pressure on the oil refineries right now. Amid such an all-encompassing, omnipresent war, what are the leaders of Ukraine doing? They plan to bring 8 million people back to Ukraine. I was shocked when I learned this, as it was previously stated that 6 or 6.5 million had left the country. And then suddenly Sibiha, this wonderful person with an administrative helmet for his head, said that 8 million people had left and now they are once again planning to bring all these people back. Yesterday I read the news about the founding of a new ministry called Mind. There was already a Ministry of Unity, but its minister was almost arrested. That's Chernyshovka, Zelensky's, and now they are creating a new ministry. It's called something like that too, something about uniting everyone. Ukrainians all have unity, that's the idea basically. Well, apparently they can set up another budget-funded post for this, hire some of their own cronies, relatives, daughters, put them in the right positions, and everything will go on as before. The ministry is working, the budget is being spent, but as for results, there are none. As one of the characters from our daily episodes used to say, we are very satisfied with the results of our work, but unfortunately they didn't have any results. Or the results are either meaningless or unfounded. Now I'll try to find this great person for you. So here he is, I think it's Pashayev, the one who handled the Efremov case, and here's what he says.
We are completely satisfied with our work, but unfortunately, our work did not yield any results.
That's how things are, there were no results, so we're moving on to something new. I guess Magyar will have to wait for now. And I have a video of that very Sibiga whom I announced to you, and it's impossible not to show it. It's just pure glitz and glamour. He himself, his little suit, his knowledge of English, everything is perfect. Let's just listen to what he's saying there. Okay, let's turn on the sound, turn on Siberi, let's go.
According to this, even 8 million Ukrainians are supposedly abroad.
You might be forced to stay abroad, can you imagine? You left and now everyone is forced. Now they've found jobs and are earning salaries. Some get 1,000, some 2, some 3,000, and some even more euros. And they're just sitting there, supposedly forced, thinking, God, I want to go back to my old job, maybe as an engineer or at a factory for $300. They really want to, well, that's what they say, honestly, I don't know. Here without goggles, the power to get offended. Thousands of glasses help protect against ionizing, all-penetrating radiation. This is ultra patriotic and all that power. Now, we're not afraid anymore.
For us, it really starts to feel like a challenge we can face safely now.
For us, well, yeah, we worked hard. Me, egg, tractor, I don't get tired. Are you tired? Repeat.
Exactly. We say that the necessary measures will be taken, the necessary steps will be developed to stimulate or create proper conditions for Ukrainians to return home.
They will probably force people, most likely they will make it harder to get documents. I don't believe they will do anything. This is so that Ukrainians who have gotten a taste of a normal life, who have felt like real people, some for the first time abroad, and have become in-demand specialists. In order for them to return, it's necessary to create the same conditions as abroad. Quality of life, peace, standard of living, and salary. Food isn't very expensive, it depends on the place, but in many European countries it's already cheaper than in Ukraine. All of this has to come together for at least some people to actually come back. And of course, there's also housing and other things. What is Siberia going to provide? Whether he'll start teaching everyone English or maybe invite Zaluzhny to say his good morning, I don't know. But to say things like that on camera, you really need to be accountable for your words.
Action is the main strategic goal. Of course, for that, conditions must be created. First and foremost, safety at home.
Well, yes, that's ending the war, man. Ending the war. Who can make that happen? I honestly don't know. They already signed an agreement with Trump to provide him with resources in exchange for security guarantees. They wanted to get at least 1 foot into NATO, they wanted to join Europe, and we keep trying to establish some kind of security guarantees for Ukrainians in their own country. That's it.
That's also a fact, that's also true. We discuss these issues with our partners, and we also see that not all countries are interested in the return of Ukrainians.
Again, he contradicts himself. Here he says that some measures will be taken in Ukraine to ensure a decent life for Ukrainians. And at the same time, he is hinting that negotiations are underway with representatives of other countries to make them send Ukrainians back home. So how can a person with such a gigantic IQ and apparently the greatest brain in the world be in charge of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? If one of his thoughts contradicts another, I don't understand. Maybe he meant something else. Correct me in the comments. But I can't imagine how or why he was chosen for this position. I mean, why? I know he's meant to follow orders, but I don't understand how he got to his position.
Considering the contribution of our citizens to the development of economies, considering their level of qualification and adaptability in these countries, in fact, we will still have to fight for our people.
Yeah, keep talking about fighting. Let's have a fight. Go ahead, set it up.
Or they came back.
By force, I say we need to bring them back to fight. He's getting ready. I don't know what methods he's planning to use to fight, but naturally these methods won't be gentlemanly. First of all, like it was in 2014, they're like a fighter against the enemy using shovel handles from entrenching tools. Kuleba was saying let's get the documents there. Now Ukrainians abroad won't be able to get passports, they won't be able to get them. He signed this himself. And it's just crazy what they're doing and what they've done, and apparently a new stage of human rights abuses is coming. Well, let's take a look. First we have bloggers here, blogger Volok. Volok has something even stronger to say. The leaders started, if you didn't know, with speeches together with young Lenin. And here he tells us that the pay for privates is just huge. I don't know why he blinks differently with each eye. Probably so that, like a dolphin, one side of the brain works while the other at this time. The salary for ordinary people is just enormous. I don't know why he blinks differently with each eye. Probably so that, like dolphins, one side of the brain works while the other doesn't. At this time, young Lenin is resting. This is exactly when he's taking a break. Both sides of the brain, apparently. I don't know if they're involved or not. It's hard to say, but I think this presentation will be interesting.
Business as it is,
Whether it's a hammer, it stays awake just to look.
then the market does its job in such a way that
The TV marathon has exhausted everyone. Even journalists are dozing off, if only it was shorter.
who could have ever dreamed of such pay for a private in our country? A few years ago, who could have even dreamed of such salaries?
Yeah, 20,000 hryvnias, that's quite a salary. How much is that? $500? Wow. I don't know how much that blogger used to earn before. Maybe he worked as a junior assistant to the senior janitor, and for him, $100 seemed like a huge amount. But in normal times, for example, I even have acquaintances who did regular finishing work. They used to make $1,000 or $2,000 there, which was really good for Ukraine at the time, and here it's $500. Volok was so happy he even put young Lenin to sleep. That's crazy.
Someone came in today with $1,000. What can you even say?
$1,000. And this is our television, $1,000. And if he started rapping about girls and shootings and all that stuff, it would be at the very least extremely interesting to see that blogger. Then we have someone else. There was another blogger here, Babarenko, who is also planning to bring people back.
I'm talking about the bums. Yeah.
The blogger Bobarenko is apparently in his garage out of habit, and he's telling it like it is. Or rather, he's talking nonsense, and that's why conditions need to be created for that.
These are the conditions called patriotic upbringing.
Uncle, before patriotic upbringing, people need to have something to eat and something to wear so they can feel like human beings, and only then can you talk about patriotism. If you've never heard of Maslow's pyramid, but that's not our problem.
Cultural influence will come through movies, songs, and more.
And so on. Yes, let's sing to hungry people, those who came, especially from the war, or those who are being shoved into a van for it. There are songs especially by Fedina, the deputies wailing. Now that would be a twist. Everyone would just rush to defend the country, Europe and New Zealand, anything just to join that culture, but that's just wonderful. I think the power lenses need to be put back in place, need to put them back in place. Wait.
But still, at best, if 40 or 50 of these young people come back after studying in places like Poland, Germany, or Slovakia, I will applaud and consider it an extraordinary success for the country if...
So he doesn't intend to create conditions for Ukrainians in the country, but rather to broadcast Fedina's patriotic wailing to them, apparently through speakers in this digital concentration camp. And he plans to bring back those who are abroad. So they'll show them a couple of random Ukrainian singers, show some new calls apparently about Siberia, and everyone will rush back headlong. But those who still have hair, of course, will head back to Ukraine. He's a wonderful blogger, listen, such a genius, just a genius of our time, a hero of our time, wonderful. Well, in general, I think there's nothing more to discuss here. We've discussed everything we could, so the only thing left is to wish everyone a good weekend and say goodbye to everyone.
And now, in my opinion, all the president's statements are about gaining the moral right, if necessary, to launch a preemptive strike on Belarus.
This is the first time I've heard the president mention preemptive measures in a speech.
This is a warning to Lukashenko not to make any sudden moves, while the president is still speaking gently to Lukashenko, if you noticed.